Good evening, everyone. I hope you can all hear me and see me well. And thank you, Roger, for organizing this call today. It's pretty late here in Thailand. It's about 2 a.m. in the morning, so I apologize if there is any signs of long day in my face, but I hope you can still hear me well. Roger asked me to come and join this call today and give you guys an overall update of what is happening at Sepco Industries. And we truly have some very, very interesting news and updates to share with you guys today. Now, to start with the most important things, actually just about a week ago, we had a very good meeting at the Sepco production facility site, where the second unit is now fully completed. And as you probably are aware, there is in the Sepco facility, there are two polypetron production units there located and standing side by side. And the first unit, which was financed by Cloud Horizon, has obviously been there and been operational for quite some time. And now the second unit, which was just now brought online, has already now completed its testing period. They are still doing obviously some tuning up on it and getting it to full capacity. And now our technical team is working very hard to have both of these units in full scale production within this month. And that's something that we're all obviously waiting a lot, and we will be seeing some interesting development and events taking place once we have reached that state. Now, interesting and obviously important information for you to know as well is that the development work for the technology is continuous. So our technical team has been continuing their development work while they have been building this second unit. And there are actually quite a few even visible developments that you can see from the videos and the photos that have been shared in the different groups, or obviously if you come and visit the site yourself. One major development that we added into the second unit just as late as 2 weeks ago was a pre-treatment unit where we are basically now able to heat the plastic before it's being injected into the reactors. And by doing this, we are looking to receive a higher level of production as well as a higher level of efficiency. So these are very important things that our technical team has been working even at the same time when they've been building this unit. I've mentioned it to a few people before that normally when you have a company that is doing product development, what they would do is they would go to a laboratory or to a warehouse for a year and develop the product and then come out to the market and launch it there. In our case, our technical team has been developing and improving the technology while they have been building it. So this might obviously cause some delays in terms of getting the project in hand completed, but in a bigger picture of things, it is very, very important. And as we are moving forward, all of these developments that have now been done for the second unit will become obviously automatically included into the third and the fourth and the future units. So this is the way that our team has been working and developing this technology greatly during the time that they have been building the unit. Now, this facility where these units are located is fully functional. We are receiving daily domestic waste from the Sepco municipality. And this waste that comes into the facility is then being separated by our staff, our ground team over there. And the bio waste or anything that can be used for fertilizer is separated All the glasses are separated, the metals are separated, plastics are separated, and carbon and all kind of cardboard and all kind of paper is separated. Everything that we cannot use ourselves, which is basically everything else except for the plastic, is either being sold or given for recycling companies, where they are able to then utilize this waste in other different forms. But of course, then the plastic that we want to keep is separated into different types of plastics. For example, polyethylene, meaning all kinds of packaging products and wrapping materials and so on, will be shredded, and they will be used as a raw material for the oil production at the polypetro. All the other types of plastics, for example, very hard plastics called, which are used, for example, in car manufacturing or children's toys and all of these things, those would be, again, used in other purposes. Same thing with plastic bottles, which are separated. Those are sold for further recycling, where the local recycling companies here in Thailand are able to break down those plastic bottles into smaller pieces and then use them as a raw material for manufacturing new plastic bottles. So this is basically something that is done for the different types of plastics which are being collected. Now, the plastic bags, wrapping materials, and the film that we collect will then be shredded, as I mentioned, and then used as a raw material. I'm not exactly sure how many of you have been at the facility here in Thailand, or either in the Sepco or in the first facility, which is located in the city of Saraburi. But if you remember, the plastics are basically shredded into a size not larger than your earpod case or a stamp, if you would look at it in that way. And once they have been shredded, they can be fed into the polypetro. Now, these units that are there can both intake approximately 20,000 kilos of this shredded plastic material, which is now being preheated in this additional unit that we have now installed into the second unit, which is located there. And after that, it can be then converted on a daily rate to approximately 15,000 liters of fuel. Now, there's been some questions about the quality of this oil which comes out from this production. So I know that there's quite a lot of new people involved who might have learned about our business and our technology quite late, and therefore I just want to run down with you quickly the basic concept of how does the technology work and what is really happening there. So what we do is we inject this shredded plastic waste into the production unit called the polypetro, where we are able to provide heat in 8 different chambers with 8 different temperatures. And this is also something that separates us from, I would say, everyone else on the market. We'll talk about that in a moment, but just keep this in mind. The Sepco's polypetron production unit is the only pyrolysis production unit in the world which is using at the same time simultaneously multiple temperatures in one reactor. What does that really mean is that when the plastic waste enters into the reactor, it travels through 8 layers of chambers where temperatures ranging from approximately 80 degrees in Celsius all the way down to about 470 degrees Celsius will be applied to the plastic. And what happens here is that the plastic starts to change in its form. It starts to create and it starts to change into flammable gases, which we are able to use as a heating raw material for the system itself. And it starts to convert into smoke. This smoke we can then collect and we can use that in the production of oil once we move further down in the process. Now, approximately, when looking at the average production, approximately 10% of the weight of the plastic will be converted into gases. And as I mentioned, these gases are flammable. So what our team is doing is we're channeling them back into the furnace. And by using these gases, we can actually generate approximately 50% of the needed heat each day for the process. So this is very valuable, very important to know that we're able to utilize something that would normally be considered as a waste product, which are the flammable gases. Now, another small, usually we're looking somewhere between 5 to 10%, will remain from this raw material as a solid residue, basically charcoal. And this is something that comes out at the very end of the production. This black charcoal we can use also as a heating material. We can use it, we can burn it, we can create heat from it, or we can also sell it. There is a growing market at the moment for something called carbon black, which is a refined, cleaned version of this char. Because of its very dark tone and its elements, it can be used for example, tire industry to create the black color in your car tires. Or it's been used in many different medical industries, in different types of practices where this can be used. If you just Google carbon black, you will find a lot of information about that. Currently, the carbon black itself has a market value of approximately $1 per kilo. So it's actually quite valuable as it is. Depending on what type of plastic is being injected into the machine, the nature of that char that we produce can change. But this is basically what comes out. And then everything else comes out as smoke, which we will then cool down in our distillation system, and then convert that smoke back into the liquid form where the plastic was initially created, which is the pyrolysis oil that we are all obviously so excited about. Now, to give you a quick background, approximately 6% of all the oil around the world, which is being collected from the ground or pumped from the oil refinery, on the oil rigs, or on the sea, or like you if a little bit older ones of you can remember the TV series Dallas, where in Texas they would pump this oil. So about 6% of all the oil that is produced every year is converted into plastic products. Now, last year, approximately 400 million tons of new plastics were created. And unfortunately, a little bit based on and depending on who do you ask, but somewhere around 80 to up to even 95% is estimated to end up in trash. Basically end up in landfills, end up being burned, and so on and so on. So if you would say that 85% of 400 million tons per year ends up as waste, you wouldn't be very too far away from the truth. So this is what happens now. And governments around the world, including the European Union, has been in a situation where they have needed to come up with solutions for treating this waste. And one of those ways, one of those solutions has been to create legislations, create regulations where this waste will be turned into fuel for the traffic. But also another very important area which the governments are pushing hard at the moment, and we are dealing with this on a daily basis, is that the governments want to start using this oil to create not only fuel for the traffic, but to create new plastic products. So converting this oil back into new plastics is a very, very important agenda. And for example, many of the big oil companies are currently working on this field. So the future for this oil, as we are seeing right now, and this might come as a surprise for many, might actually not be in the road traffic. I don't know if this has been really discussed in any of these calls before, but I want you guys to see this other opportunity that is there. And this is a huge, huge market that is opening up at the moment. So not only are we currently being asked to sell all of our production to the road traffic, we are also asked to sell our fuel for the marine industry and for the manufacturing of new plastic products. So each day that goes by, there's some interesting development that takes place, and this is one of those major new opportunities that have opened up in a very, very recent months, because in the beginning of the year nobody was talking about that, but now that is a big possibility. So the oil that comes out from the machine, it's called pyrolysis oil, and this oil can be used as it is there and then to fuel any type of low-speed diesel engine. So for example, trucks, buses, boats, generators, and so on. Any kind of diesel engine can be run from this fuel right there and then without any refining needed. But if we refine it, it can be turned into European Union standard diesel, gasoline, and kerosene for the airplanes, jet fuel. Now, until I believe about 2 years ago, the kerosene part, sorry, the naphtha, which is basically the gasoline part of that oil, would be used for creating plastics. But very recently, they've also done some very good development on the technology side for creating plastic products. And now they are also able to utilize the diesel part of the oil. What does this mean? Is that when we take different types of crude oils around the world and we look at the oil companies, what they do with these crude oils, they are not able to utilize 100% of the crude oil which comes from the ground for making commercial traffic fuel products. So I'll give you an example. For example, there is a very widely sold and very popular type of crude oil coming from South America, coming actually from Mexico, called Maya heavy sour crude. From this type of crude oil, you would be able, as an oil company, as an oil refinery, to produce approximately 50% about 35% in commercial fuel products. So every 100 liters of Maya that oil refinery would buy, they would be able to create approximately 35 liters in commercial fuel products. The rest of it, about 65%, they would need to utilize in creation of, for example, asphalt or roofing or other kind of things which don't carry such a high value. Another example would be something coming from the Middle East, another type of crude oil called Arab medium sour crude. In this type of crude oil, the oil companies would be able to generate approximately 50% in commercial fuel products, which is quite significant difference between 35% and 50%. The most valuable crude oil on the market at the moment, which is called Brent light sweet crude, which is coming mostly from the North Sea, is considered the most valuable and the most precious crude oil on the market. One of the reasons is that up to 65% of Brent can be converted, can be refined to be used as a commercial fuel product. So you see the difference from the one from Mexico, 35%, Middle East about 50%, and the Brent about 65%. So for an oil company who is trying to make as much money as they can, it's very important that the raw material that they buy can give them enough and as much as possible commercial fuel products that they can then sell for their buyers. Now, from the oil that comes out from our machine, as we have been proven by third-party independent laboratories, after refining, they have been able to utilize our oil up to 87% in commercial fuel products. Now, if you compare that one to the 65%, which is the most valuable crude oil on the market, the Brent light sweet crude, that's a big difference. Now, let's talk quickly, why is it like that? And then what is the result of this? The reason why this is possible is that, again, the plastics were all made from this crude oil in the beginning. And that crude oil was refined to become the plastic bag or a plastic bottle or anything else that you might use. When we take the plastic waste as our raw material, it has already been refined, which means that the conversion into commercial fuel products is much higher because those impurities have already been refined out from our raw material. And this is very, very important. Therefore, right now, when we are looking at the market rate for the pyrolysis oil, which we are producing, we are seeing a very, very interesting and steady increase in the price. Right now, the price would be roughly approximately 53, 54 euro cents per liter. If we say 50 cents a liter, that's a very good number to use as in your examples. But 50 cents a liter would basically be the average market price. And that would be above, that would be higher than the Brent light sweet crude. And this is exactly one of the reasons why. It's better for the oil companies to buy our fuel than to buy the oil from traditional oil mining companies. Now, another important point, which some of you are probably aware, for some of you this might come as a new information, but it's very important for you to understand this when we go along in this call today, and you see where we're coming from. So then I don't have to come back and explain to you these things later. One of the biggest changes that we're going to be seeing in the oil markets in the coming just a couple of months, actually about a month and a half, is the new IMO regulations taking place worldwide. Now, what does that mean? What is IMO? IMO is abbreviation for International Maritime Organization. It's an organization which operates under the United Nations, and it's responsible for regulating the international maritime traffic globally. And what's very interesting here is that over the last years and years and years, the maritime companies and the ships, the tankers and the cargo ships and so on, which sail around the world, they have been allowed to use on the international waters pretty much the most cheapest, dirtiest, affordable fuel that they can simplify. These types of fuels are typically called bunker fuels, and they have a lot of emissions on them. Now, when you look at sulfur, which is part of this new big IMO agenda, sulfur, if you do your Wikipedia search about it, sulfur is bad. Let's just say that sulfur is very bad for anybody, especially our environment and for human beings. And there's been a lot of work with the development of the new types of fuels in traffic to reduce the amount of sulfur that, for example, cars are releasing to the environment. But a recent study showed that just 15 of the largest cargo ships in the world are releasing more sulfur emissions into the atmosphere than all of the world's cars combined together. Okay, 15 boats, not 15 companies, 15 boats, 15. And now the IMO regulation, which was originally released already 6 years ago, is coming to take force now on the 1st of January 2020. And what happens here is that due to this new regulation, the allowed amount of sulfur which these cargo boats are allowed to use in their fuel is going to be reduced from the current 3.5% down to a very small amount of 0.5%. So from 3.5% down to 0.5%. That's a pretty big drop. And what this means now is that there is a new market which has opened for something called low sulfur marine fuel. This is something that I recommend you to do a bit of a research and check up on. So low sulfur fuel is going to become extremely desired commodity starting from the January 1st, 2020. So in about a month and a half. Okay. Now, why is this? The reason is that about 80% of all the cargo ships, all the tankers, all the marine vessels in the world are going to be depending on this new low sulfur fuel. About 80% of the cargo ships, of the marine vessels, are able to modify their technologies with scrubbers and other implemented machinery to basically filter their emissions. But 80% of the boats will not be able to do this. And they will be depending on this new low sulfur fuel based on this IMO regulation. As they said in CNBC, they said that this is the largest, the biggest individual change in the oil market history. All right, biggest change in the oil industry ever is taking place in the beginning of January. Now, as I mentioned, they are cutting down the amount of, allowed amount of sulfur from 3.5% to 0.5%. Based on the tests that we have done for the fuel that comes out from the polypetrol, little bit depending on the test, little bit depending on the raw material we put in there, but the maximum amount that we have had in these recent tests that we have done has been 0.03%. All right? The new limit is 0.5. The highest in the test that we have done so far has been 0.03%. And in some tests that we have done, the laboratory was no longer able to detect any sulfur. So that gives you a good understanding of how valuable this fuel is. Now, there was a question that was sent for Roger earlier about specifically about the quality of our fuel, and I hope that this answers your question. And this is also something that the market analysts are currently expecting, that now, because of this this new regulation taking place, there's going to be a very big increase in value for this low sulfur fuel on the markets. Some estimates are saying that during the next couple of years, the market price could go up to even between 200 to 400% in market value. And actually, just a couple of weeks ago, the first ever exchange for the low sulfur fuel was opened up in Singapore. So there is a new oil exchange in Singapore, which is specifically focusing on this low sulfur marine fuel. So this is again another very interesting development that we are in the middle of, and we're going to be benefiting greatly by the oil that we are producing from the production units. So that's to give you a little bit about the background. Now, what is happening in our business in general? Where are we moving at the moment? So obviously here in Thailand, we are continuing to build now more units. As I said, we just completed the finalization for the second unit. And now we're expecting to have both of these units in full scale production within November. that is something that our teams are fully focused on, and we have at the moment very good situation in terms of our technical team, and they are working on the last tune-ups for these units, and then once they are completed, we're going to start building the next unit. We have very recently signed a few agreements, which we are going to be talking more in another announcements, but we will definitely be giving you and sharing you more information about new units coming online here in Thailand. 2020 is going to be a great year in that sense as well. We have at the moment also continued to create agreements with local governments, city governments and municipalities here in Thailand to take over these waste management facilities, which have been for many years struggling financially and haven't been able to find a solution for that huge pile of plastic waste that they are currently storing in their landfills. For example, the location in Sepco, where these units are placed at, on that land, on the landfill itself, there is an estimated 400 million kilos of plastic waste stored in that location, about 400,000 tons. So if you take a calculator or do a quick math on that one, 400 million kilos in one site, which we can convert in a good case scenario, approximately 75% into fuel. In a bad case scenario, about 50% into fuel, depending on how much dirt, how much contamination that plastic holds. Now, if you do the math on that, 400 million kilos, let's say converted into approximately 200 million liters of fuel with a market rate of 50 cents per liter. That means that only in that one site, we are currently sitting on a storage of raw material worth 100 million euros. It's one location. We have signed at the moment 2 similar locations, and we are currently working on agreements for multiple such locations all across the country. At the moment, these cities have no solution for the plastic. The plastic waste that they are storing there is just piling up. It doesn't disappear anywhere, and they don't know what to do with it. So we are there to help, and at the same time, get our hands on this huge amount, let's say a mountain of gold, which is basically standing there on the backyard, which we can then convert into something very usable. And as I said before, we will sell it for the best client. We'll sell it for the one who offers the most. As we can see right now, the global traffic fuel industry needs our oil. The marine industry needs our oil, and as I explained earlier, also the plastic industry now needs our oil. So I'm not the one saying it, but maybe some of these speculations and estimations of very dramatic price increase for our oil can actually become reality. So we will see, and obviously we are hoping to utilize all of those markets and be in the very center of it. Now, when these units are in a full-scale production, and we're looking at a daily production of about 30,000 liters of pyrolysis oil per day, I would need to check this one officially, or maybe somebody can do that research, but we will definitely at that moment be one of the largest producers of advanced biofuel in the world. There are several projects at the moment which are in the very first stages. They haven't started production yet, or they are still building, or they are in the laboratory state, or in the very first stages of the research. But actual production per day, there is not many companies around the world who are actually doing that. And we will find out about this one in more detail, and before we go out with an official statement saying that we are the biggest or among the biggest, but that's where we are. That's definitely a truth. Now, that to answer, give you a little bit more information about what's happening on those markets. So here in Thailand, we're continuing. We are now starting to build the next units. We're going to include at least one more unit in the Sepco facility. Following that, we have about 50 kilometers away from that, we have another location in the city of Chachoengsao, where we are going to be establishing in a similar way at least 2, maybe 3 units, and then we are moving on to other locations after that. There's no shortage of plastic waste here in Thailand, which is the situation obviously around the world. One very big announcement, which I'm sure that most of you have seen, was released very recently regarding Finland. And there we have quite recently signed an agreement together with our local partners. If you go online, you can do your search. There is 2 official Sepco companies which have been registered and established in Finland at the moment. There is a company called Sepco Nordic, which is our holding company for the Scandinavian and Nordic countries market. And then there's another company called Sepco Nokia, same as the mobile phone, which is registered there as well. Now, we, together with our partners in Finland, we have signed an agreement with the city of Nokia, where Sepco is joining a circular economy, a special zone in the city. And in this area, the city of Nokia has established different types of recycling, green energy and circular economy projects, of which Sepco will now be joining it. And what we will be doing there is we are going to be setting up at least 1 production unit to a land that we have already reserved. It's already been reserved for us, and we have an address for it, and it's already been recognized. And in this area, we will have a full-scale 20-ton polypetron Gen 5 operational. At the current estimations would be latest by the 2nd quarter of next year. So let's say before July next year, we would have this unit located there. One of the reasons why we decided to start from Nokia was that the city government was extremely supportive and welcoming for us, and they very much wanted us to come and join this project zone where we are now taking part. And we wish to work very closely with the local government, and we're actually going to come out with an official press release on this subject, I would say latest by next week. It might still come out this weekend, but latest by next week. So then this will become official as well. We have in total signed an agreement for Finland for 3 units, and at least 1 of those will be located in the city of Nokia. We have a couple other locations in mind as well, but that will be the first one. Also, an important thing for you guys to know is that this unit will also be built in Finland and most probably in Estonia. And these units, which are produced there in that region, will then be delivered across the Nordic countries and the Northern European countries. So we are also moving towards a more localized regional manufacturing of these units. So we won't be shipping these units from Thailand. We will be building them locally there where they are needed. And in that way, reducing significantly the lead time of delivery and production. Now, as of today, to build one of these units, when they have still been built like the first 2 units by our in-house team, the time scale for manufacturing one of these units has been approximately 5 to 6 months. That's basically what we are securing for getting 1 unit from the moment of the order, starting the work until it's in full-scale production. So if you go back and you now look at that, the first unit was completed around June 15 was when they actually got it up and running for the tests. And since then, they've been tuning it and they've been working it, and they started to set up the second unit, which was interconnected. So there was some delays on getting those two both working simultaneously. But that would basically be the amount of time, 5 to 6 months. Now, once we get to a more industrial scale production, it means that we're going to be able to reduce the lead time from that 5-6 months to closer to about 2 months. And this means that then these industrial scale producers that we are going to be working in partnership with will be able to manufacture several units at the same time. So this means that the production and output of these units will be speeding up tremendously over the next coming months and years to come. Now, obviously, the most important part is the financing, is to have the funds to build these units. And that's where the collaboration between Sepco Industries and Cloud Horizon comes so closely and importantly together. So, as you know, Cloud Horizon has made an agreement with Sepco Industries to finance a total of 50 of these polypetron production units. And this is something that we are working forward for. And we have a very good relationship with Cloud Horizon and with the management of each companies working closely together each day. And that's just something very important for you guys to know. So on behalf of myself and on behalf of Sepco Industries, we are extremely happy and grateful for the collaboration between Cloud Horizon and Sepco, and we have a great future together when we move forward. Now, but this is a very important topic, and the faster that the organization that you are building and the great work that all of you are doing with all of the different teams around the world right now, all of these achievements and your day-to-day work is speeding up the process of building new units. And that's really the key of our operations, to make more of these units. At the same time, we are also working on the private side, on the private equity sector, where we are dealing with more and more investors, both private and institutional, more closer with governments and big investors who are now starting to see the opportunity that Sepco and Cloud Horizon hold. One very interesting point, and I'm trying to cover as much as possible, so excuse me for my my quick pace of talking today. I think fast and I talk fast, so I hope you guys can just grab as much of it. It's good that Roger is recording this so you can come back to these details. I don't want to drown you with all these numbers and details, but I know that you guys are eager to learn and you want to know as much as possible. So I'll try to serve you that in the time that we have reserved for this today. So very important is obviously the private sector that we are working with, and just a couple of weeks ago, which was a kind of a, I would say it was a very good recognition that we got as a company, came from one of the largest industry, I would say they are like a mechanical engineering consulting companies from Finland. They are a big company. They are actually, now, unfortunately I cannot tell you their name, but I can give you a hint. Yeah, they are a consulting company specializing in technical solutions and manufacturing. So basically, if you are, and they made about €500 million in turnover last year, and they have about 4,500 employees. So it's quite a big company. And we just recently signed an agreement with them, and they came to us and this is, I'm kind of a little bit going out of topic, but I want you guys to kind of realize what's happening on the market. And this was a great recognition for us. You will be receiving and seeing the announcement regarding this subject coming out later, but just so you can kind of get where I'm coming from. This company is a company that is consulting anyone, anywhere in the world who wants to build any type of manufacturing or something to do with industrial production. Let's say if you wanted to build a paper factory or a sugar factory, whatever it would be, these guys would basically be there to supervise the entire production. They would bring in their financial partners, their insurance partners, and their technical team would supervise the manufacturing, both for the client and for the supplier of the technology. Now we just became, a few weeks ago, their main supplier for pyrolysis technologies around the world. And they are now an active representative for Sepco for some of these multi-billion euro companies around the world in plastic manufacturing, in fuel industry, and in waste management. And they are now going out to present Sepco as the leading technology in the market for these needed solutions. And that's pretty remarkable. And all of these things takes always time before something can materialize. But just during last month, they made offers, they made presentations and proposals for their clients for a total of 200 polypetron units. So that's the kind of numbers we're talking about. And basically, what's interesting here is that they have done their due diligence. They have been at our locations. They have checked our technology. They have seen what we do, what we are as a company, and they feel comfortable and educated enough to go out and present our technology for these multi-billion euro companies around the world and open up negotiations to potentially for them to buy hundreds of polypetrons. So when you go out and you represent Cloud Horizon and you talk to people about this opportunity, please feel confident and please feel proud to present what you are presenting. And once we come out with these announcements and we can officially announce these names and these, you are going to see some really, really interesting partners that are going to be joining this opportunity and partnering up with Sepco Industries in the next coming months. But this is what we've been working on the background. Another very important development is obviously that we have, I'm sure that some of you have heard that we have things happening in Europe at the moment, aside from Finland, and that is very true. I'm unfortunately not allowed to disclose publicly some of those things at the moment. Please wait for the official announcement. I don't want to be the party spoiler here and give you guys a teaser and then not filling you in more details, but unfortunately and at the same time fortunately, we have signed non-disclosure agreements, which is a very typical way in these industries, that before you even sign an official agreement, you know, there is an agreement made that names will not be disclosed publicly. And even if I'm dying of the desire of actually telling you guys all of these things that's happening in the background, I unfortunately can't. But we will be coming out with official announcements, and I can promise you that there is some really, really interesting partnerships that have already been agreed for and which we are at the moment being closing in. In Europe, we have at the moment several countries where very long developed conversations and negotiations have taken place. My estimation as of today would be that the top leading countries where we are going to see operations with Sepco happening in the next coming I would say months would be Slovenia, Netherlands, Belgium, and then a few more European countries. But those countries would basically be the ones where we have a lot of strong development at the moment, both on the government level as well as on the private investment and private companies level. So all in all, we are in talks right now to more than 35 different countries around the world, and there is some major announcements coming out in the coming weeks and still before the end of the year. So please stay tuned for those. I'm going to check now some of the questions which you sent for me before, which was asked from you before this call. I think some of these we've already gone through. Okay. There was something about what is a 10-year plan, and then there was a question about what's going to happen with ORT when we have 5,000 units and so on and so on. Now, obviously, we can all speculate. So just to talk about a little bit about the future and where do we see things going. Obviously, our common target together with Cloud Horizon is to build as many of these units around the world as fast as possible, and that's about it. We are in a situation in this market right now where our technology is greatly needed in every corner of the world, and the product that we are producing is just superior on the market. So there is no shortage of demand for our fuel, and there is no shortage of raw material, existing raw material and new raw material, which is coming and which is being produced on a daily and annual basis. So we are in a very good situation on the market. I have said this one before, that our target is to have at least 1,000 production units around the world during the next 10 years. That's, I would say, is a minimum. It's a lot of units, but it's still very much achievable target. Some people have asked why not more. Well, of course more. We'll try to do as fast as we can and as many locations as we can. One of the important things to remember and to understand is that this plastic waste situation, this problem, is going to take several years to be solved, but it will be solved in the same way like metal recycling or other glass recycling or generally bio-waste recycling has been solved already, at least in the developed countries. In the same way, this plastic waste problem will be solved in the next, I would say, 10 years. The question is, who are going to be the people and who are the companies who are there to solve it? And that's what we're doing at the moment. We are pushing forward as fast as we can, and you together as a team and you as an individual can help on this process by committing yourselves and working together with your leaders in Cloud Horizon and bringing this business and bringing this opportunity forward. These are the key elements. So it's not about only people asking me how many units we're going to have in 10 years. I should be asking that question from you guys. How many machines are we going to build together in the next 10 years? That's the question. But I would say that my target is at least 1,000 units in the next 10 years. Obviously, there is a demand for much more, but that's a very reasonable target at the moment. Now, what else was there? Okay, how would this then correlate into the value of Orientum Plus? Well, that's obviously a great question. Well, there's a few factors that will be very important to take into account when looking into this. One of those is obviously the market value of the fuel. What is going to happen for the market value? Right now, it stands at about 50 cents, euro cents per liter. If that starts to increase significantly, that will already by itself have an increase on the demand on the market for Orientum Plus. Now, obviously, more units which are produced, more oil is being sold, and that means that more ORTP will be demanded on the market. I'm sure that all of you already know how the Orientum Plus ecosystem functions and how the ORTP is used in the sales of the fuel which is being produced from the units which Cloud Horizon is financing. But also what's happening with Orientum and everything aside from that, and with all the other units which are not financed by Cloud Horizon, which will also benefit and importantly bring in more demand for the ORTP when it's on the market. So all of these units which are being built will significantly increase the demand. And that obviously means that when more demand is increased, also the price is increased. I'm not going to speculate personally on where ORTP is going to be in the next coming months or years. But like I told to every single person that I've spoken to that I know, is that doesn't matter how many of those you have. If you have one of them or you have a million of them, just make sure you have what you feel comfortable. That's the point. And if you look at the industry, if you look at everything that we've spoken today, you look at the demand, you look at the market, you look at the whole opportunity. Well, I personally see only one direction for the creation and the development of the value of ORTP, and that is up. It's that simple. So where is it going to be in 1 month, 1 year? I don't honestly know. But I hope that you have enough of them when it starts to reach numbers that we are all dreaming about. So let's work together and make sure that we get as many units up and running as soon as possible. And I'm sure that whatever you have on your ORT wallet, 1 year or 2 year or 3 year from now, you're gonna look at it and you're gonna think why I didn't get more. So that's my thoughts on it, to answer that question. Now, what else were there? Okay, we talked about the countries, we talked about the units which are here in Thailand, we talked about the quality. Oh, there was a question, this is a little bit technical question, but somebody asked a question that, is the oil refined to diesel, etc., in the same polypetron 5, or is the oil sent to refinery or another unit? So just to highlight on that, so basically what we do, and this is also important for you to understand regarding what we spoke earlier about. So we are not generally, as a Sepco, as a company, we are not in the fuel distribution business. That's not our core business, all right? So what we do is we convert the plastic into oil. And then what we do is we sell that oil for the oil refineries, or we sell it for the plastic industry. Whoever wants to buy it and whoever pays the best price for it. And if it's then being refined into diesel and gasoline and kerosene, or made into new plastics, that is not really our core business. So we sell it for the companies as a raw crude oil, and then they will utilize that one for the different types of products. I wanted to share with you on this note a couple of interesting things, and again, something that you are going to be seeing in the official announcements very soon. And one of these is that we have continued our negotiations with several international, I would say even global oil companies. And we are now at this moment, we are in a finalization stage with a few of these agreements where we are talking about large scale offtake agreements where basically, as of today, we have multiple big oil companies who have clearly said that they want to simply buy our entire global production. And to give you a little bit of a background on this, normally when an oil company wants to buy a batch of oil, they would normally buy somewhere around 5 million liters at a time, 5,000 tons. This would be kind of a small oil order that an oil company would do. But in our case, when we've been dealing with these oil companies now, they've actually said to us that they don't even care what is the minimum amount that we can produce. They don't mind to even come and pick it up with a truck, a car. So basically they've said, whatever you have, we'll take it out of your hands, all right? And they are very, very happy to buy them. They said it, this is a quote which was said by one of the largest oil companies in the world on a phone call a couple of weeks ago. They said that your product is such a niche product. We don't mind about our normal minimum orders. We'll send in a tanker truck and we'll buy every liter you got, right? So that again gives you a little bit more information about and background of how valuable and how desired this fuel is on the market. Now, another interesting partnership that we are going to be announcing shortly, I would say latest by next week, is that we formed a strategic partnership with a company called River Recycle. River Recycle is a Finnish company which has been supported by the Technical Research Institute of Finnish government, the VTT. And this company has developed a technology where they are able to collect plastic garbage from rivers before this plastic waste ends up in the oceans. So as we all know, the plastic waste in the oceans is a huge problem. But how to take it out, how to collect it from the oceans, that is something that we as a humanity are still trying to figure out. What's the best way to collect it? What the company River Recycle has been able to create is a technology where they are able to put this collection unit in the very polluted, dirty rivers. And basically from these rivers, they can stop the plastic ending up into the oceans by collecting it. And not only taking it into the landfill and leaving it there to become another problem, they will now, together with Sepco, put all of this plastic waste into a polypetron, and from there create oil, which can then be converted into value. So this collaboration together with us is going to see Sepco's units working side by side together with the machinery from River Recycle in the next coming years, hopefully in every single main river around the world. They have already started projects which they are pushing forward in the Philippines, in Indonesia, in Vietnam, and here in Thailand. And as they said themselves, the founder and CEO of River Recycle said that Sepco's partnership was the last missing piece of this puzzle, where this collection from the rivers now became a business. Because before this partnership, their whole concept was to raise support, donations and have the funds and associations to support them every year to be there to collect it. So basically, to be a cost that the operator or the government would need to hold year and year and year and year and year in the future. But now, together with the Sepco's implementation of the Polypetron, it can, first of all, pay its own expenses. It is no longer depending from support and donations, but now it becomes a business model. And this is a very, very, very interesting. Now, as they also said very well, is that when they've been talking to governments, like in the Philippines and other Asian countries, they've been showing their technology. And they've told the governments that, listen, we'll give you this machine for free. They'll give this river waste collection machine for free. The government have said, no, we don't want it. Why don't they want it? Why don't they want to clean their rivers? Because they know that since the moment when they accept it, there's going to be an ongoing operational cost from this machine. They need to have labor working there. They need to have a management on it. They need to pay for fuel, for transport. It becomes a continuous cost, and they don't want it, even if they got the machine for free. But now, with the partnership with Sepco and River Recycle together, now we are in a situation where not only are they able to offer for the government this river cleaning for free, as a free service, now it becomes a business. So we're expecting to see more of these kind of partnership also to happen in the future. Now I believe these were some of the most important questions that were submitted earlier. Roger, have you been keeping up on some of the questions that were posted here during the call? Maybe if you have something over there, we can go through those as well.